They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, if Jeremy Hill can hold on to a fucking football.
That doesn't make sense.
You're listening to the P&E Bengals Fan Podcast.
3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? This is P&E. I'm Erskine in the studio. Today we're talking about the recap of the Bengals 2015 season. Pete's going to be joining us on the road. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this recap.
All right. Well, I thought last year we were definitely starting to see a turn of the tide because of the fact that, we had a lot of firsts. We won in Oakland for the first time in a long time. And, coming back against Seattle at home, I thought was a big move for us.
That was big, yeah.
That was a huge, huge game, because it showed that they didn't have any quit in them. And if we know anything from the Bengals, is that usually if they got down big or whatever, they weren't coming back. They just didn't have that mental makeup. So I thought that we were starting to move in the right direction as far as, because it seems like we have all the talent in the world, but it's a mental block, which champions have to have, to be able to overcome adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought everything was going pretty well until the obvious Dalton injury.
Right.
And even then, we hung with the eventual Super Bowl champions at their house with a backup quarterback and almost, with McCarron, and almost won it.
Right. In a different situation, yeah. We were looking pretty good in that game, even though it was a tough one.
Yeah, we looked tough, but I thought that game right there, if you look back on the whole season now, that game was the turning point, really, for us, basically setting up our annual impending doom, because if we win that game, we probably get a first-round bye.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably avoid Pittsburgh altogether.
You were saying if we win that game, we might get a first-round bye. And it just reminds me of the Houston game. And it's kind of, obviously different teams or whatever, but same circumstances as far as we win that game. And Houston plays us tough every year, every time we play them. But, that was just an ugly game. But we win that game, it's the same situation as far as even losing to Denver, still getting a first-round bye. So it just, it always sucks, right? Yeah,
but the thing about the NFL season, I don't care how good of a team you are, everybody drops a game that they shouldn't have dropped. The Patriots lost to the Eagles this last year.
Yeah.
I'm sure Denver lost to a couple of teams they thought they may not have. And to be honest with you, you're right. For some reason, Houston just matches up with us really well. Their personnel, for some reason, we just struggle with Houston. They've beaten us 2 or 3 times now with a third-string quarterback, and that should tell you enough. There's something that's going on with them that they kind of got our number. So
right.
Let's just hope that we don't have Houston on the docket next year.
Right. We already have our teams, but I haven't looked at it recently.
Yeah, I saw it, but for some reason I'm not coming to mind exactly, everybody we play.
I was just going to say you're in luck. We do play Houston next year.
We do?
Yeah.
Yikes. Home or away?
In Houston.
Yeah. Even worse. We'll see. We'll see. Because I know they're looking to pick up a quarterback, so, it'll be interesting to see what part of the year we get them in. Do we get them in the beginning of the year, whenever their new quarterback's still trying to adjust, or do we get them at the end of the year where they've already kind of settled in and, then that'll make it a little tougher for us. But, I think everything last year hinged on the Dalton injury and hinged on the Denver game, really. And the thing about the Dalton injury is obviously it happens against Pittsburgh. And I really think that the Bengals need to just stop looking at Pittsburgh as the big villain. They need to stop that, because we get ourselves basically oversight for the Steelers games, and they take advantage of it because they look at us as just the Bengals.
Every time.
And because of that, they're able to mentally get by us. And There's no reason why we shouldn't have beat them in the playoffs last year. They had Le'Veon Bell hurt. You know what I mean? Like, their O-line is kind of beat up. Like, you know, the defense sucked, especially in the secondary. But for some reason, everybody in the world can throw the ball on the damn Steelers last year but us.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not watching tape, or you're not watching, you know, what other teams are doing to them to get open and mimicking that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, why is it that, you know, their secondary was basically trash last year, and we can't make a move on them? Like, you would think that, you know, with A.J. Green and Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu and
Tyler Eifert.
Yeah, Gio out of the backfield, like, you know, and we can't open up room for those guys.
Right. It's
like I just.
It's sad to have so many weapons and not be able to utilize them. I agree.
Everybody threw on them last year. I think Johnny Manziel threw for 340 on them. You know what I mean? The guy's like, he's like 6 steps away from a fucking rehab center. He throws for 340 with a receiver core that wouldn't start for anybody. You know what I mean? And we, you know, with all these all-pros and Andy Dalton, you know what I mean? We can't throw on them. Like, you know, it's ridiculous. But we do have to keep in mind that in the playoff game you had McCarron starting. So, you know, that's something right there. So, you know, but I think the interesting part about it now is the first 3 years that we blew the playoffs up, basically it was all thrown onto the feet of Andy Dalton. But you can't do that this year because he did not play in that game. And so I think the attention is finally turning where it should be turning, which is to Marvin Lewis. And rightfully so. I mean, there's a couple of games that you can definitely throw at Dalton's feet. You know, the first Texans playoff game, the Chargers game in the playoffs, you can definitely throw those at Dalton's feet. The Colts last year, the year before, you really can't because we were so injury-riddled. We were lucky to even be in that game in the third quarter, to be honest with you. And I thought Andy Dalton played pretty well for not having anyone to throw to. So I was really kind of hoping to see Dalton take that next step this last year in the playoffs, but obviously we didn't get, you know, to see that. And as much as I always say, like, Marvin Lewis would make an excellent GM, But I just don't know about the X's and O's when it comes to the playoffs. Or just does he not know how to mentally get his group together? Because, you know, you had the wild game against Pittsburgh, you know, in the regular season, and then Marvin Lewis comes out in the press and says, you know, yeah, me and Mike Tomlin talked. We agreed that, you know what I mean, like it shouldn't be like that. And then in the next playoff game, it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe Tomlin hung up and just said, screw that guy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, at this point, the focus shifts. And it's already been like that for a lot of people, a lot of the Bengals fans, a lot of the nation, really. But hopefully, as an organization, well, you know, it's the Bengals, so probably not, but something might change in that. And we have a new offensive coordinator. That'll be interesting.
Boy, that's going to be real interesting because Hugh Jackson was the best O coordinator we've had probably, man, in a long time. And
yeah, I agree. I was sad to see him go for sure.
Yeah, so no matter how much Ken Zampese wants to, you know, maybe make his mark or put his stamp on it, I just don't really see what he's going to do to top what Hugh Jackson did last year. I don't know. Like, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. Yeah, with as far as even Andy Dalton just turning a corner this year and just looking so good before he got injured. It'll be interesting to see, does he keep that ceiling or is it going to go out the window with the new offensive coordinator?
Well, here's the other thing we have to consider, too. It's going to be really, at the end of the day, it's going to start being unfair to compare Ken Zampese or, you know, with Hugh Jackson because we might not have the same personnel back.
Right, that's true, as far as free agency and everything.
Marvin Jones might leave in free agency, you know, and honestly, between me, you, and the fence post, I just don't really see. I mean, is Marvin Jones a huge loss? It depends on what you look at as huge.
Right.
Because the one thing I thought that Marvin Jones was kind of weak at was grabbing the ball in the air at the point of attack. Like, if he's open, yeah, he's going to catch it and off he goes. But, you know, he really didn't get a lot of those contested balls, like the jump balls. Like, he couldn't continuously beat a defender. And you got to consider that A.J. Green is dragging the first cornerback.
Right, so you're playing against a number 2 or a number 3 cornerback.
Thank you. And you still can't
You need to be balling out of control, right?
Yeah, you can't get the jump balls. You can't get the contested ones. And that's a problem. And I actually saw that halfway through the season last year. I'm like, you know, if you're up against a second or third cornerback, you need to win that all day if you consider yourself a top-tier wide receiver.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Which, obviously, Marvin Jones.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they go for in the draft.
I think, honestly, I think they're going to let Jones walk. I think they re-sign Sanu, either that or Sanu goes to Cleveland.
Really? It sounds like Sanu has a less chance, according to the media, has a less chance of making it back to the Bengals than Marvin Jones at this point. Everybody's talking him up.
Yeah, but the thing about free agency is no one knows. The media just speculates. You know, but honestly, like, I can see Sanu or Marvin Jones, really. You know, I can see Hugh Jackson trying to bring one of them in because, you know, if you're Hugh Jackson and you're looking at the Cleveland Browns, the one thing you want to do is bring guys in from a successful program, guys that you know.
Right.
Because they know how to practice.
And you know he's going to blow up that whole program anyway, yeah.
Yeah, they know how to practice. They're pros. They've been taught the right way in the Bengals system. You know, so if you're going to change the culture of a franchise, you got to bring guys in who understands what it takes. Kind of like the Bengals in the 90s, you know, and we really, you know, floundered for a long time, you know, and that's why it's so hard to really, I think most Bengals fans would agree that it's kind of hard to be hard on Marvin Lewis because as much as he's rolling out, he's rolling out the old Marty Schottenheimer carpet, you know, great in the regular season, can't win in the postseason. I mean, if any of the Bengals fans are older than 30 years old, you remember the 90s, you know, and you definitely don't want to go back to that.
At least he's brought a culture of winning, even if it's not in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, but at some point, how far does that get you, though? You know, I mean, how far as a fan can you just forgive him for his, you know, playoff inadequacies? You know, when, you know, because he wins in the regular season. You know, at some point you got to say as a fan, like, I mean, that's great. He brought us back from the dead, but we want Super Bowl titles. You know what I mean? Like, we want titles. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, so it's kind of a fine line with Marvin Lewis. Like, I sometimes I'm not really sure how to feel about it because there's part of me that's like, you know, yay, he brought us back from the dead. And there's part of me like, but damn, dude, like, can you win a playoff game? Like, you know what I mean? Can you outthink somebody? Like, you know, and out X and O somebody?
And to be fair, well, just going back to that last playoff game, I mean, is it the play call? I mean, what do you do in that moment, right? As far as letting Jeremy Hill run the ball versus just downing it, you know, and that could be on Jeremy Hill. That could be the play calling. That could be on, you know, Marvin Lewis just being too, anybody. It could go all kind of different ways. But we should have won that playoff game, and it hurts so much more when you should have won and you didn't.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you know, and I'm sure this is the reason why Marvin Lewis hates the media. We always get to look back on it in hindsight.
Exactly.
You know, the old saying is the hindsight is always 20/20. But having said that, before Jeremy Hill even fumbled the ball, the minute that McCarron turned to give it to Hill, the first thing that ran through my head was, why are you giving the ball to somebody who has fumble problems in the rain at the end of a playoff game? Like, I mean, as he was running through the line, that's what I'm thinking. Like, why would you give it to him at this moment? Like, you know, when you've already benched him a couple of times this year because he's completely, he's inadequate as far as
for ball security issues.
Yeah, I mean, ball security issues. And it's like, and so as soon as he fumbled, I was like, shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so if I'm at home and I'm John Q. fan, you know, and I recognize that as you're handing him the ball, how do you not know that as a coach? You know, and then Marvin Lewis sits there and he treats the media like crap, like, you know, they're just a bunch of idiots who don't know anything, you know, which I mean, I see what his point, because Bill Belichick gets away with it, and he gets away with it well because he wins. But, you know, at some point, if I was a media member, I'd be like, well, listen, dude, like, I knew when you handed it off to Jeremy Hill, you shouldn't have handed it off to Jeremy Hill.
Right. So how do you not know that? And it's your job.
Yeah, so if I know this, but you're treating the media like, you know, they're heathens and they don't know what they're talking about, like, you know, then, yeah, there's a problem there. Like, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, maybe the media is not as dumb as you think or whatever.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing, just to go back to Hugh Jackson taking players from the Bengals. I'd be very excited if he took Brandon Tate because he's a free agent.
Would give him to him. Like, I will sign him to a new contract and give him to you. I mean, I just refuse to believe that there's not one guy on the freaking planet who can't sit there and give us more value as a kick returner than Brandon Tate.
It's just amazing.
Although, once again, being a Bengals fan from the 90s, I do remember the years where it was like, you know, you're leading in the game and then blue, the punt and return guy fumbles. Like, it happened every time. You know, so I understand that Brandon Tate, you know, at least he secures the ball. Like, he doesn't give it away.
Right.
You know, which is nice. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, you know, in a game, especially now where, you know, it's all offensively constructed, if you will. You know, I mean, it's nice. And we have a great punter. We have a great punt return team, great punt coverage team. You know, but your kick returner, Jesus Christ. Like, but here's the thing that kills me. It's got to kill you if you're Brandon Tate. Okay? You're Brandon Tate. Your main sole purpose for being on the team is to take back kick returns. But when you really need a kick return, when you really need it to work out for you and you need 15, 20 yards, they put Adam Jones in.
Right. You would think that would be like a red flag.
Thank you. It's like, you know what? We really need a good kick return. Brandon Tate, sit down. Here comes Adam Jones.